All right, we should be good to go here. This is a image I've been working on. I'm right now having to redraw my own lines because I actually drew them on a solid fill layer, and so now I have to redraw my own lines, tracing over and deleting that layer since I didn't have my layer locked. Just so you guys know, I am going to go find a pencil here that I was doing it with. I was so frustrated last night that I had to kind of stop working. But I'm good to go now. Let's get this back into kind of a black just to start with. And then we'll make this quite a bit smaller, maybe a 4 at the most. That works. So yeah, a little frustrating when you wind up doing something like that, having to redo a lot of work, but it's alright, because in the end, if it all works and looks good, then it's okay, right? Right. So it won't take that long to redo, having done it myself multiple times before now, and I won't even tell you about the multiple times part of that. In fact, this was an accident I made 2 or 3 times. But I've decided to do the smart thing and lock the layer, or any layer for that matter, that I'm not going to be currently using, that I'm worried about messing up. And I highly recommend anybody else doing this kind of thing do the same thing. There is a chat. I don't see that I have it up, so I will look for this real quick. Looking for my chat window. I thought I had it open, but I don't see it now. Controls, stats. I'm going to reset the docs here so I can see what's going on. View. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing my chat window. Let's go back here and bring these up to make sure I can see everything. There is my stats. There's my chat right here at the bottom. I don't need those stats on the window. Matter of fact, I'm not sure why they're over on that window. I'm just going to turn that off. Yep. And then the chat's right here in the center, so no problem. You guys don't need to see that. All should be good. I am going to bring up, though, my control panel so I can see if and who is doing what. So all that should be okay at this point. So yeah, looks good. I'm going to say hey. That way, if anybody wants to say hey back, they can. And we'll just continue working here. Using a Kyle's Ultimate Pencil Hard for this. Yeah, go ahead. And at any rate, like I said, recovering from doing a really dumb thing, you know, from getting these lines on the wrong layer. It's all right though, because like I said, I drew it. I can recover it easily enough. I just hate having to do it, especially late in the evening, you know, or I'm just relaxing doing my thing, thinking I'm getting a lot of work done. And you find out, well, all that work you just did, you know, didn't get done. So have fun. redoing that. And I did it like 3 times in a row. Like, don't know why. Now I've got the locked. I'm doing these on a line layer as they should be done on. And hopefully this will, sorry about the shaking of the camera. It's attached to my monitor. Hopefully this will be time numbers, the end, the last one. And then there's nothing else to deal with or worry about. So yes, it's a series of books about a imaginative boy who was moved into an apartment building and sort of creates an imaginary friend, a dragon, and they have a lot of adventures. It's really cool though because of the things that are imagined. And it's kind of like his coping mechanism to deal with the loss of his father, which is something very close to my heart. I lost my dad when I was about 30, so it's a bit different, but it's still, for me, impacted me in the same way. So, and it pushed me to be more in an imaginary headspace at times, and so it's kind of, this isn't necessarily a book or a series of books for kids who've lost their dad or something like that, but it's kind of like a thing that I think, if you can relate to a character that has been through something similar or a traumatic experience or anything like that, that's cool and all, I mean, well, it's not cool. I hope you don't have to do that. But what I mean is, it's like Harry Potter, being alone and abused and all this other kind of stuff and mistreated. And, well, in the end, it's cool in a way because he finds out that actually he's well above and better and cooler than the people who are mistreating him. And, there's almost like a reason for the suffering or something, or, or there are things you can do to find your way out of that feeling, etc. Like, using your imagination and, finding comfort somehow within other things, like art or whatever, anything you can do, filmmaking, making creatures, and not horrible and scary things per se, but I mean like things like, anything that works as like a companionship or lets you process, stuff like that, that's my kind of like take or opinion or reason for any of it. So, yeah, pretty much recovered here, I guess, from that horrible loss of artwork. Easy enough, like I said, to kind of redraw it. So I'm going to see if without this little extra layer, if that's working fine. It looks to be 1000% done. We'll go ahead and now delete that. Where are you at? Delete layer. Where are you? I don't see my delete layer. Am I missing that? I don't think so. It's because it's locked, isn't it? So this one will be unlocked and deleted now. It's nice that it asks you and it, lets you do such things. I just need to make sure that now for any of this, I'm drawing on the correct layer, which will be this. That's why I have my paper, my watercolor paper, locked. So I'm just going to come in and kind of crisp up and clean up the drawings. It's kind of like a sketchy layer right now, just to kind of get it laid out. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of this, and I'm probably going to turn a lot of this pencil brown. And I want his eyes looking down at the dragon, so I'm going to redraw these pupils, or at least move them to where we have more of a version of that, and I'll have to cut off some of that iris and whatnot when we do, but give this a little angle, maybe move it down some like that, just to where it feels like he's looking at the dragon a bit more. I think that's a little bit better. Don't know if I like the expression on his face just yet, but we'll see. I think that's a bit better. I'm going to erase that top part. It's a little distracting. Let's just get this down to a manageable size. Kyle, can you make your brushes to where when you switch from one to the other it keeps your last setting? That would be amazing. I'm having a bit of a frustration every time I switch from one brush to another and it goes back to this default of, I think it's 50 or something. It's just a little hard for me to do every single time. Alright, let's just move this one now. I love your stuff though. Don't get me wrong. Not a complaint, just a suggestion. Okay, we'll come in here now and erase this top bit. Let me just deselect. Guess that could have been Control D. So something a little more like that is a bit better. I'll have to redo the highlight and whatnot, but I think that's okay. Doesn't really look like much of a happy face on the kid. He looks a little too shocked in my opinion. So we'll probably do quite a bit of redo on some of this. He shouldn't be horrified by his friend, in my opinion. If I just give this a little color, quote unquote, this will help him look a little less dead. He still looks a little overly concerned, in my opinion. Like, what? Did you just fart? Gonna get rid of that, I think. I mean, really need to decide what the... I think it's that other pupil that's bugging me, so just come in here and move that a little more forward. And I mean iris, but you know what I mean. Maybe something a little better like that. It's a little kinder, a little less weirdly surprised. Also, this needs to be a little more like out there. A little less in the top here. I think jawline feels a little weird to me, so I'll pull this out and this out. Kind of a fan of that Bakshi look. It's just kind of that. I'm just trying to be careful it's not too overly complex drawn. You know, it's just doing a lot of shaping, and I do have a lot of odd lines here because I was using the shift, you know, which allows you to draw straight, and it does this weird diagonal pop over that I don't care for. see. Get rid of some of this. Probably make this less hardness. In fact, from my eraser, I think at the moment, anyway, I'm just going to use a hard round for that. I can take this down to like a 2 or something, 3. And just kind of really just snip off any of this extra that's making things a little too rough. You can see all those extra diagonals that it wants to create. Lord. Not again, cat, not again. No. My cat's got a obsession with when I speak regularly. I think she's just telling me to shut up. It's happened a lot in my life, so, you know, no surprise, but I don't know what her deal specifically is. That was a joke. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of some of this. Just any of this extra garbage that's sort of cluttering things up. Not all of it, but, you know, anything that's just too much. Like a lot of this is just this skip over weirdness from that brush that tends to connect my diagonals back. Okay.
Yes, shut your mouth, cute cat.
Alright, so just a little cleanup now. And it's not a big deal, but I mean, it tends to just muddy things up quite a bit. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Make sure I am on my line layer. Hold the shifts and just try to throw in some of these lines again. See, it just dropped in a diagonal, which is, let's look at that. That's so weird that it does that. It's got to be a glitch because nobody would want to work that way. I have to click and then do it again just to get it to not do that, but it's very time consuming to keep re-clicking to make it stop. Alright, I suppose that is okay for paint. I'm just going to get rid of some of these extra extended lines. The unnecessaries. Let's see, some of these have just really been dropped in the most inconvenient way. From what I understand, you can use the eraser also with the shift, so you don't accidentally erase anything that you're not meaning to. But your eraser apparently also does this nifty diagonal erasure, like it's doing the extra line, which I find a little weird. Cool. So I guess pretty much that's good to go. Hey, would you, if you're doing another coffee, I'll take one.
Okay, there's only one coffee pot.
Oh boy. So a little more of this here. Thank you. Just add it to that. Thanks. And then I can clean up this one. Looks like there's a spider lives in this window. It's pretty annoying that it does that. I need to figure out why. I don't know if it's his pencil specifically that's doing it or if it's Photoshop. So, if you guys are watching, say hey. I'm just kind of doing some cleanup real quick. And then we'll get back to the actual drawing. Like I said, I've got my sort of scribble layout stuff and got that dragon fixed now. And this is for a book series of books I'll be doing. And there's a little mess going on here too. All these diagonals don't belong. But for the most part they won't show. It's just annoying to have them sort of pop in there on their own. Alright, so now I'm going to pull out some of this stuff that I overlaid by accident. I got that dragon redrawn and resized for that matter. So I had it, he was too big. Let's see. Start dropping in my lines again. That is the wrong color. What the heck? Is that diagonal? It's the weirdest thing that happens, and I don't... Look at that. Garbage. I don't know why that happens. It's almost like it thinks I want to extend that line out, but... So I figure if I tap it and then do the shift, it does work better. So tap and then hold my shift kind of makes it not happen. It's better than nothing, and it is relatively fast that way, so not a big deal. Alright, let's zoom. Well, I guess I can do these guys too then. Most of this will have paint over it, but because it's watercolor, these lines do show. And some of them I want to, of course. Alright, I think that's working okay. We need a line pretty much here that goes all the way through. We'll erase it from the dragon, of course. Kind of skip through it, and I'll go back and put the lines in if I need to, the shading, hatching. But I think that's fine. For paint, it's totally fine. Wasn't sure what I was doing with the hand, so I kind of left it, but I think I'll do that with some fingers sort of curled up under is what my idea was. Hopefully these are the right length, something kind of around that idea. Thumb is probably going to be kind of curled under here, so I'm just going to do a bit of a shadow on it. And cool. Alright, so hopefully that looks alright. Then this will get some shading, you know, along this line here. There will be a shadow actually put there. This hand's kind of funky, not really pleased with that. Gonna have to really kind of make a decision on what's really going on here. I always count my fingers too, like 1, 2, 2. I'm assuming this is gonna go here now. 3, yeah, that works better. It's one thing that, you know, I'm glad they fixed with, well, AI in general, because when you see those images, I really hate seeing 52 fingers, but enjoying it for myself, definitely. Only 5, given the person, or the creature for that matter. So these can just be more in a bit more shadow. All of this obviously will wind up being shadowed. For the most part, that's good to go. Okay, and just start erasing, cleaning up a little bit more here as well, like through the shoes. If you guys like what you're seeing, let me know. If you got any questions, ask me. There's a chat. I am actually looking at it off and on. And I do like the interactions, so please, you know, say hey or whatever back. Alright, so with the cleanup, okay, I'm just going to come in and kind of work on this head and hair a little bit more. I'm using, like I said, a Kyle Ultimate Pencil Hard for this, for anybody watching that wanted to know. And right now I'm just kind of deciding on more of the hair, you know, what's really going to be where. Trying not to overdo lines because obviously this is going to be watercolored. This one might be too much or too harsh. This is more for a shaded area. Something maybe more like that. The collar there, make that stand out just a little more. I'm going to kind of get rid of a couple of these lines. They're very sketchy and a little confusing like that. Maybe even these. I don't want to confuse myself, and it happens often. I think these could be a little more solid. Clean that slightly here. Constantly going back and forth and making sure that, for one, I'm on the right layer, but secondly, that I'm on the right tool, and that tool is the right weight or thickness or whatever. Because I've had some issues with that jumping around a little bit on me. For whatever reason, you know. Yeah, a lot of fast sketching going on here, obviously. It doesn't matter so much with the watercolor, because that'll be, you know, it can be muted out and stuff like that. But when you're doing this for animation, I don't want a bunch of, you know, extra lines that shouldn't be there. I mean, granted, this is going to be a raster type animation. It's not going to be a vector animation. So I can kind of get away with some stuff looking sketchy and all that, obviously. But the overall, I don't want to have to be messing with a lot of extra lines and stuff like that that aren't even needing to be there or supposed to be there. The sketchy look is really good for this kind of thing. That's why you have to do it in a raster way, because the vector just doesn't do it like that. It doesn't handle these scribbly lines unless you're going to be using things like Moho does allow you to do some of that, but it's going to add a ton of extra points to the vectors. You know, they're going to be thousands and thousands of little points that you have to manage. That I'd rather not. So right now I'm just doing really line work. I sitting there sketching shading. I really probably shouldn't be, because there's going to be paint, of course, taking care of a lot of that. Don't need that, I don't think. think this is more of a building detail anyway that I was trying to scribble in the background. I think overall that's pretty decent. I want a almost like a sharper pencil, but not narrower. I don't know how to describe that, but you know, it is what it is. And it's probably resolution dependent too. If I was to be using a higher resolution image on this, it would be a sharper feeling pencil. So this is all going to be in shadow here, maybe even a little farther out, just to help to define the edge of this ear. Obviously that'll be a little bit more defined. I really need to decide where these straps of his coveralls are sitting ultimately here now. Thinking about upraising the size of this to give myself a bit of a better resolution. Right now it's only at like 1275. I'd probably do this at like 2500 to make this just, when I draw, a lot sharper of an image. And you'll see what I mean now that when I draw, I hope I didn't screw myself over, but you'll get a lot more of a cleaner, you know, kind of overall line. And do stuff like that a lot easier, and it doesn't look a fuzzy old pencil, which I think gives itself or lends itself to the painting more, to be a little fuzzy, but because it blends in a little easier. That's why I typically don't use black on almost anything. Unless, of course, it needs to be directly that harsh black. You can see I get a little better, tighter lines and stuff with the higher resolution. Need to find my glove for my screen. No idea, I haven't used one in so long. I typically don't need one, but here lately, maybe my screen's just dirty or dirtier. So these I'm not going to worry about those fine lines so much. Make sure I keep this highlight to some degree. Got a lot of new music just came out of mine, if anybody's interested, over on my YouTube channel here. There's a couple lyric videos, and then over on Bandcamp is where the actual music is. You can purchase, download, listen to, or whatever. if you're into things like it. It's mainly a goth industrial grouping of music, but I think it appeals to more people than just that. It's a little much there. Let's try to break this up in a more slightly sketchier way like that. I think that works. I'm going to clean up now this little bit of the under eye here. There we go. Like I said, this was drawn sharper before, but now I can draw it even sharper because of the resolution increase that I just did. I kind of still want it to look like pencil, is why I'm not, doing this in a heavier kind of inked style. Let's see. It's kind of a bit of a Christopher Robin-esque kind of look, and I dig that. I'm doing another animation for someone, and it's got that same kind of feel to it. I'm a fan of the warmer stuff, and things that look not necessarily so Cartoon Network. Not that I'm against that, but I'd rather see kind of that sort of Bakshi type of warm kind of feel. That's why I like the watercolor. It's I don't know. I grew up looking at all of the and appreciating all the Froud stuff, and because of that, I think I'm a fan of that sort of style of artwork. I had a art teacher named Myron Weckworth back when I was in grade school and junior high. He was a junior high teacher, but I got skipped up, and art was the biggest thing for me, back then. And I got to take his art classes earlier than everybody else because of that. And anyway, through him, I got exposed to all of the, Brian Froud work and all the Frazetta and Bakshi and all that stuff, because that's not something I had seen before. I was into monster movies and, whatever, and I loved cartoons and blah blah blah, but the true kind of like art masters, and I mean other than Van Gogh and so forth that we had seen and I had seen when I was a kid, but I mean, like, I thought art was either this or this, and when I was in art class younger, of course it was blue, yellow, and green, or blue, yellow, and red, and your color wheel and your primaries and your secondaries and all the other complementary colors, blah blah blah, and perspective drawing, and that was all great. But the what I wanted to really do, obviously, was far more advanced than what they taught at that age. And luckily, getting into the other classes, when I was younger, the teacher I had wasn't just teaching, junior high level art at all. I mean, the guy was a master, and he could do stuff like H.R. Giger level stuff. I mean, he did a recreation of, was it Lai or Lee, the L.I. name, by H.R. Giger, and had that sitting in his classroom, and he worked on stuff constantly, but I just would sit there and stare at his work. And he visited me actually 10 years ago at my house, and he's a much older gentleman than he was then, and it was interesting though being there with this guy that I used to know when he was like 30. He was my teacher, is now like 70, whatever, you know. And sitting there at my house, he's playing me, because he made instruments and all this stuff. He's sitting there playing his ocarinas that he had made and brought with him, you know, for me. And I recorded him to use the music in a movie that I haven't made. But yeah, it's very cool. The guy had a lot of influence on my life artistically, for sure. So I was really lucky to have that growing up. And then, like I said, to get a hold of him and have him come by and stay at my house and hang with me and talk about art was very cool, because he thought I was a, you know, talented kid, and recognized some of the stuff, I guess, that I was able to do then or whatever, and really kind of helped sort of push some of the stuff that I wound up doing, you know, that I wouldn't have any other exposure to, I guess, otherwise. I got very lucky. I mean, my dad had a lot of influence on me too, as far as being creative. You know, my mother was creative as well. My dad was a little odd in the sense of he did things that other creative people kind of didn't do around us. You know, I mean, he would build things, granted, and stuff, but he had a way of thinking that, since we were poor, I guess is a way to put it at the time, he would find ways to do things anyway. You know, I have a friend that reminds me a lot of him in that regard. But even though he wasn't like a classically trained artist, he could draw, he could paint, and but he also did things like he made instruments as well. You know, like he found old fence boards and would make violins from, you know, crazy stuff like that. So it was kind of cool to be able to have any of that kind of stuff around, to be exposed to it, and I think it helped me a lot. So the curse is on you, Dad. Alright, so I think increased net resolution. It's going to increase a lot of time that I have to spend on this, because I am having to go back and, you know, kind of reline some of this. But I think it's worth it, because I'm going to also make my pencil just a little bit fatter, because now that I can, let's deal with the 8. I can get a nice thicker line. That might be too thick. It doesn't have that overly grainy grain to it. Let's go ahead and go down like maybe to a 6. Just a little less fat. There we go. That way it still has the same weight feel to it, but it's not like thin little scratchy lines that I'm doing it with. This here I can be as drawy, sketchy, painterly, whatever as I like, because this is for a book cover. There will be a bunch of book images, obviously drawn the same way and so on. But it's not for animation, so there's so much more, I guess, freedom of the lines and the way I'm doing this. And I have to keep that in mind, because I have forgotten it multiple times while working, that, hey, you don't have to make these perfectly. You can be a bit sketchy. You don't have to enclose certain shapes and things like that. I mean, certain things you kind of want to, if you're going to be doing a mask or something, you know what I mean, that you have to surround the color and fill and do things like that, but not in any way the same way. I'll kind of bring this up a little higher there. Okay. So a little bit of shadow happening here. Obviously throughout here still. It's weird to go back and redraw because sometimes things look more blurry because you have both lines there and you have to go in and erase or whatever to get stuff to redraw it clearer. And pull that over. I don't like that being on that line because it almost looks like it's attached. So something like that. Slightly better. And I make sure I don't make these big, long, solid lines that work like some animation outlines do. You can break it up. You can see these parts where there's nothing there, which gives it that sketchy, that's what sketching is, you get that kind of hand-made lines, which you want. Luckily, I'm pretty good at going back over my own stuff. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble yesterday and this morning having to redraw that dragon's line work all over again. It's not even the line work. It's just a sketch layer, but Lord. Line work is more of, like we do for animation. These feel a little odd and stuff to me, but it's probably just too much detail going on in the hair at this point, I think. That's all right, I think. You'll hear me stopping, undoing, redoing over and over again multiple times. I think that's working, even though there's a few double lines. I think it works well. Like I say, now that I've got this resolution a bit higher, I can kind of come in here and make this better. Sometimes I can't get it right on the line, so I'll do it multiple times until it takes. If you like what I'm doing, let me know. Like, subscribe, do all the junk. Ask questions. This is just Photoshop, so you know, if you're wondering what I'm working in. I'm using a lot of the Kyle brushes, the Kyle pencil, and then the watercolor. He has a great watercolor set of brushes that I'll be using. I did a bunch of them this morning on a little bird. You guys have seen that one. That is now up. It's just a live stream, and recommend going and checking that out. Obviously, this will be some what do you call it, shading here. I draw some of the shading, but also paint most of it because it's going to have the more the watercolor look, but the more I leave alone. But I do like this sort of pencil and watercolor, pen and ink almost kind of vibe that you can get. Just retracing my lines to get that sharper definition. When you see somebody trace their own lines, you can see they're made in the same way, which I think is kind of cool. Just sitting here watching myself do it, it's like, man, it's like a recording I'm replaying. Sometimes I just really suck at it. Like there. And sometimes it looks a little more mechanical than I intended. I don't think I'll shade this area now. I'm just going to leave that sort of softer, and then when I do the painting over, it'll soften it up even more. Have a more natural watercolor look. Like I said, I like the pencil, and I'll probably make these pencils either, and I might change the outline of certain parts, like the skin tones will be more brown, the clothes can be more violet or something. I think would look good. And this is all real time. I mean, this is not sped up or anything. I'm just literally sketching over my sketch. I don't want to redraw it per se. I'm just leaving the other muddy sketch under it because it will kind of help with the softer sort of tones of it all, I think. Not hardlining everything. And that's why I'm going relatively fast with the sketch or the lines, just so they still feel kind of sketchy. That one's a little undimensional. At the moment, I'm co-writing this with someone, but we'll see if that will continue based on involvement and things. Not sure where anything goes in life anymore. I think I'm going to get rid of this weird lump in the collar. I don't care for it. There was my eraser here. Just started looking once you step back and was like, why is that there? Why would that be there? I tried to hard line some of the actual main object, like the outside of the arm, depending, you know. What was I meaning here? I wonder. I know this is a sleeve, but that seems a little loose. Looser than I would have probably intended that to be. I don't know if anybody else does that, where you go back and look at your stuff and you're not quite sure what you meant by it. Because the sketch is rather loose. like I said, paint will either, you know, work with that, or I can always go back and erase some of these lines and reinterpret what I meant. It's another reason why I'm able to go over them so quickly, is I kind of know what the intention was there. I'm not sure if I wanted to connect to that or not. And I think maybe I don't. It's like redrawing this hand. Might do this. And those lines for the knuckles. I mean, he's supposed to be foreshortened kind of like that, but I might want to do more of a fist, but I don't know. I think it's okay. This is all those decisions you have to make in the process, right? All of this is going to be kind of dark. I don't really need to shade it, but I'm going to kind of pencil line it because it's going to match my style of the rest of it, I suppose. It's like hatching. It's really just dragging a pencil through it, to be honest. Alright, so let's get these a bit more mapped. I mean, that is my map. The sketch is more like a map. And then this really kind of determines what I meant by that map. I guess is a good way to describe it. I don't want to be overly liney, but I'm going to be to a degree until the paint starts going on. And then I can go back and erase any of this line work. I just like to be defined enough that, you know, I'm not sort of slopping paint hoping it, you know, is doing something like I meant it to do. Wrinkles shading is going to be pretty much through this area. I think I meant this to be a bit wrinkled, and then a shadow kind of pretty much coming down there. Let's undo that, it's a little wiggly. Yeah, it's a little wiggly still, but it's not like it was. A lot of times when I'm drawing, I have to make sure that I'm looking where I'm going, not at what I'm drawing. That can tend to help. I don't know if that helps anyone else that may be having a struggle with being wobbly, you know? And sometimes moving faster is better than moving slow and careful. Yet again, depending on what you're doing. Okay, why am I not scrolling? There we go. Sometimes my mouse just decides, I don't want to work. It's got plenty of battery, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe it's just too far from the computer is what it seems like. Now these shoes, I wasn't sure what I was doing, and I think what I'm doing is like a leather shoe with no laces, I guess. But it might get laces later. Little indication for my highlight there. Hang on, it's not a Reebok. It has a very Reebok kind of feel to it. Do something like that where the sole kind of comes up. Couple wrinkles like that. We'll see where this goes later. I'm going to erase a little bit of a line here. I like to make sure that I'm clear later when I'm painting, you know, what the intentions are, so you know you're not doing a bunch of guesswork at that point, you know? Which isn't the best time to be doing guesswork. Should have already decided on a few things, I guess, by then. I don't want to have to keep jumping back and forth to my eraser to get rid of lines if I don't have to. It just kind of breaks a little of the creative flow. There'll be some of that happening here anyway, because there's just spots that are, you know, somewhat messy still here and there. Obviously that shirt and all that's a bit, I don't know, a bit more busy than I wanted it, or should have probably made it. So anyway, if you guys are watching, say hello. Once again, I'm going to go in now and kind of really clean up the face of the dragon here. Kind of intended for this to be ears and horns, but they're kind of loosely slapped in there again. So just sort of line it up and see what we get, huh? A bit of line there for telling the color what we might want it to do later. Some little bits and bubbles and stuff here. Like I said, this is mainly stuff that's just sort of indicating, you know, what should be kind of happening here. We don't know exactly what the detail is, but a lot of detail is implied in paint. A lot. Don't like that. Cool. It works for me. And let's just get this little eyelid thingy happening there. Now this, I gotta make sure there's a bit of round to the end of these. So these are like the little brow wrinkles, you know. Something like that. This should be a bit of a shadow coming back from that. I try to flick and sway with a lot of stuff because it tends to, I don't know, it just gives the pencil stroke or whatever, pen stroke, a little more character, in my opinion. This will all be a bit darker. I'm just going to kind of tell myself that for later. I think this was, you know, more of an ear. Those are not right for that side at all, but I like this sort of cresty bit. Kind of stick with that. Maybe some lineage in there, maybe some other hornness. Something in the middle, maybe like that. Have another ear, maybe kind of, that's what I think I meant by this squiggle over here. So, perhaps. Not that. I can do a little, you know, variation in the lines fine. It's just I don't want so much that it doesn't look how it was intended, you know. Like I said, redoing this because of the resolution increase is it's interesting. Maybe there needs to be a little bit of a spike or something happening here, and I can erase this other thing. It was a secondary choice, I think, of an ear and stuff, so this probably can go away. It gives it a regal, more regal kind of crest, I think, to kind of have that, but I don't think it's right for the character. This is ear, and crest. I'm going to need to really get a front and side view sorted out on him for the book pictures, but I think at the moment that's cool. This is the dragon. Its name is Ember. I know it's probably been done. But the kid's name is George. Yes, it is George and the Dragon. But it's not St. George, and it's not George and the Dragon you've heard in other books. This is just the names of the characters. The books are called something different. Just doing a little cleanup as I go. So just kind of reestablishing these lines that I literally just drew for the 5th time this morning. It's like a trace over, but it's not, because it's just a redefining, just increasing the definition of these lines. So that's why I'm kind of redoing them over the top, because they're just increasing their definition. It's not redrawing them necessarily. Sorry about the shaky camera, but I'm using my undo on my graphic display here to kind of make it faster for me. It's just conveniently placed when I remember about it. I couldn't even remember where the button was or which button it was for this morning, or not this morning, but yesterday. I'm thinking, what am I doing? You're not a professional. But that's just sad, sorry things we tell ourselves sometimes to self-deprecating humor, right? Boy, that was not good. The natural wiggleness I think you do want. It's just it needs to still say what it's saying, indicate what it's indicating, and read, as they say. See, eventually you get enough control, you can just kind of tap right into your own stuff and not, wiggle too much and come off the lines and all the stuff that you need to be doing because your hand is kind of trained. And this is coming from somebody who had a stroke 1.5 years ago. Thank goodness I am better. I could not draw well even months ago. So this is it's a good feeling to see any of what I'm doing being done on any level of well. Guitar, I'm still working on getting that back. I can, and I can definitely do it for recordings, but not without multiple takes, and things like that. Typing finally came back. I couldn't type without making tons of mistakes and transposing letters. It was almost funny. I was having a really hard time typing before it happened, including the night before. I might have actually even had one the night before. And I was laughing about it, going, "Oh my gosh, look at this! This is ridiculous. Why can't I type?" It's very scary to think about. But I was like, why can't I type? We had some people here, and they went and told my doctor. You might want to talk to him. I think something's wrong. I don't know if I was talking weird or anything, but my arm and hand, I thought I had tennis elbow for the longest time. I didn't. Numbness on my face and my lips. Numbness in either arm. Would feel like there's a numb band wrapped straight around my arm or something. So if you're having any of those symptoms, go get checked out. I was not one to go to the doctor and hated it and still do. But if you want to survive, just do it. Because let me tell you what, winding up there is not what you want to do. I don't want to be back, for one. I changed my diet. Granted, I've slipped on my diet. It's probably the hardest thing in the world to do is stick to those kinds of things when you just like certain things. I wound up getting all of my teeth removed, and then, I have teeth at that time as well. And that's kind of how I found out, because my blood pressure was so high when I went to the dentist to get checked out. Nobody would work on me. They're like, if we try to work on you, you're going to die on as we work on you. So I was like, well, why is that the case? So I was very frustrated about that. And like I said, I went in to get my teeth finally just taken care of. And they were horrible. To the point they thought it's possible that the infections that I had just running rampant. Didn't show, didn't smell, it was nothing like that. But that they were there, and that it's possible that they had something to do with having a stroke. So take care of your teeth. But I've had a phobia. A lot of people do, of the dentist though, for a long time. I don't anymore. Of course, I don't have any reason to anymore. So there's a little stupidity involved there on my part. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I can work again. I can do things again. I'm okay as far as I know. I just need to not treat myself badly. And the other night, Halloween night's the first time I've had any alcohol in months, and before that I've had literally 4 drinks in over 2 years. So that's crazy in itself. And it is better. It is better. I used to be the guy who wasn't an alcoholic, but I was the guy who went to a party, and if I found out there wasn't going to be any beer or drinking, or I'd be like, I don't want to go. I just want to be able to have a few beers and blah blah blah. But it became kind of this thing where if there wasn't any or whatever, then I didn't really want to go, and that's kind of bordering on that thing, because it's kind of, your happiness is dependent on some type of addictive behavior. So that had nothing to do with any of this, though. Like I said, I'm not a big drinker anyway, but I enjoyed it when I did. I just think I knew it was always bad for me. What's up with this? Let me see if I can erase that. It might be on the other paper. Where's my eraser? I think that's on the paper. Yeah, it looks like a hole. So what we'll do is take our healing brush. Go, hey you. Done. All good. I accidentally must have erased, or you know what it was? I didn't paint that with my base color. Cool. Alright, so that is looking alright. I think I want to lock this layer now. Add a new one and start doing some color. I'm going to put the lines on the top. We're going to make that layer a multiply layer. You'll see it get a little darker, and we're going to lock it. And now this is going to be some color. Excuse me, when I need to heat this coffee up. And I'm going to pick some very light colors. So I'm going to go with a kind of a fleshy Caucasian vibe for the kid, but that's not going to be my lightest. My lightest color is probably going to be kind of a base yellow, because these will be kind of reflecting city lights or something right in the middle. I say city lights, but you know what I mean, I hope. And then we're going to go over and close up all of our folders here. Hello, what's going on? Close up our folders if it will let me. Oh, I still have pencil written in there, that's why. It's doing a search. So we close up all these by holding control. Come down here to my watercolor. These are the Kyle's watercolors, and I'm just gonna pick like a 5. It's my favorite for just base work, especially. And we're gonna knock that down to about half that size. And I'm just gonna chuck in quite a bit of this yellow. You don't need to avoid the eye, but I'm going to. And this is just going to act as kind of a base color for pretty much everything, so that the highlights are kind of similar to each other throughout, if that makes sense. And while I'm waiting for stuff from other people, and also when I'm processing what I need to do for other things. Yeah, that's why I'm working on this now. Make sure this is on the correct layer before I get too far. Something I tend to seemingly have still a memory problem for. That is something that all that affected too, is I had some memory issues for a while. There are people and things I don't remember, which is kind of sad because I don't want to forget things. It's almost like you lose years of your life when you lose any memory. So if you know me and I haven't spoken to you, and I should be, or you just want to remind me you exist, let me know. I'll happily talk to you. Maybe it'll be nice because it'll fill in spots that might be missing for me. Okay, I'm going to lift my pen for here, and I'm going to come up and just start again. I'll get a hard edge here, you'll see, but then I can blend that away super easy. But like I said, this is a base color that's going to be the lightest color. Kind of acts as our highlight. If I have to go back and put a bright highlight, I'll do that with an opaque paint, like real watercolor does. Colorists, painters do. But for now, and I do like to do this like I'm doing, where I'm not just creating a selection and filling it, because you still get pressure changes and brush lines and cool stuff when you do it this way, manually. If I go a little harder here, you can kind of see that's got a little more darkness to it and stuff. I'm going to make a line, unfortunately, where this leg is, but it'll be no different than the other line, where I stop and start, right there. But I'll show you in a second how easily that is overcome. So right now this is just like I'm laying out base colors for any regular painting. Like if you were doing comic book work or whatever, you would lay in your base color first. I'm going to do the same for the background. I'm going to look at an image here in a little bit though to get a reference. But on here now with this, I can go in with my blender right here and just sort of wipe some of this away. I like that look, but it's not meant to go in that area yet. In fact, I'm going to do a little bit here too, so that's just all kind of the same color, or the same style for that layer. I also want to come in and clean up the eyes real quick, so I'm going to grab my eraser and just sort of come in here and say, please don't put anything here on the white of the eye. And I don't have to be crisp and perfect with that. That luckily is just going to be it's watercolor, so it can be rough through there. In fact, I'm going to go back with my paintbrush now, a little smaller. Just sort of clean up some of this color on the face. And then I can go back in. If we want, we can leave this darkening here. I kind of am going to want that. So just going to make sure there's color on these spots. You're like, why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. No, it's not. You'll see. Under the nose is going to get some shadow. This is going to get some shadow. This obviously will too. We can just go ahead and throw some of that in here, because this is a next level kind of layer of color. I'll show you how this works in a minute. He's going to have the brighter color to the right there, so I'm just kind of creating highlights and shadows this way. I'm going to go ahead and do this fully kind of through here. This way we can create our highlight on the side of the face. I'm going to go ahead and grab the rest of this here like so. This is still kind of a highlight color. And then we'll use our blender to kind of knock that together a bit more. I'm going to get a smaller brush here though, so that I don't destroy the edging, the cool watercolorness of what these are supposed to be doing. I just really want to blend some of the harsh areas out. Okay, that's working fine. Cool. So there's kind of a base color meets a base color. With this same color now, I can continue doing that. I'm also going to go in and now darken the arms. So we are going to go back to our brush, do everything over again, except for this highlighted area. And these don't have to be extreme or anything. In fact, a lot of these will be in shadow, given where they are positioned relative to the camera kind of thing. Alright, so now if we wanted to, we could still come in here yet again, start darkening up certain areas we know are darker than others, like that. We can go a little more under the nose and under the lip. This whole side of the face should be a bit darker now. So we're adding yet again another layer or another application of the same thing up to a point. That'll be just darker than the rest again. So it kind of sort of layers over from one side to the other. And then we do it yet again, where now these even darker parts, like say around this eye, this whole side of the face, you know, this part of the past the nose, all this is now even darker. So you could start to see the dimension, you know, sort of coming out. And this is all just still yellow, you know, just shades of yellow. We can kind of maybe come around this eye now and make it a bit darker through there. Maybe even this side of the head at this point also has darker value. In my opinion, this ear would probably be the darkest thing on the whole area. And just following my shading that you can kind of see from prior. So that's kind of working. I don't want to be horribly extreme because this is supposed to be a softer looking painting. So I'm just going to come down and sort of touch up some of those overly harsh blends there. And what's cool is we could go back at any time and add paper texture back into this or whatever we want to do. So I think that's looking all right to begin with. I'm going to turn the line work at this point into, or at this place, into brown. So if I want to, I'm going to unclick. I'm going to make sure I'm very careful about this and going to take the lines, probably of the entire head, I think. Not the shirt, though. Something like this. We'll include the hair. And I want to make sure I don't include the building back there, if I can help it. So let me kind of deselect certain bits. Like that. Now we're only just getting the head lines. Then we can go in here and, whoops, we can go in here. There we go. And adjust this hue and saturation with our bit here. So if we want to increase the saturation of them and then take the lightness up of them, or change this, but I don't think that's going to work. We need to use what's it called? Mode, no, adjust. I want to turn these into, where is this? Where it replaces, not replace color, but it changes this over into a color. Where are you? Image. Okay, it's not layer. I've done this a billion times. Basically turns it into like colorize or something like that, and I cannot find it for some reason. Edit. I swore it was a filter. Can't be though. It's got to be in here. Maybe it's the photo filter that will do this. We will check. Density, color, warming filter. No, this is just warming. I don't think that's going to work. Image. Where are you? Not sure why I can't find this. I might be thinking of a different piece of software. I don't think so, though. No. It's like a filter. I know. I swore though it was in the adjustments. I mean, I literally did this. It's like a 3-color effect or something like that, and I can't remember why I cannot. Maybe. I don't believe that's the case. And this is just the line work I'm trying to affect, so. Yeah, that's none of this. It's not making sense. It's like going black and white, but going the other way. Not sure why I'm not able to sort this. I mean, you're literally, you want to, it's called colorize. I'm certain of it. Anybody knows that's watching? Let me know, please. Maybe it's under stroke here, which is something I try to avoid. Color. This is just the palette. This is not going to change what I've already got. That's just moving. So strange. And I do this all the time, and now I'm feeling a bit confused. If I am doing something wrong, please tell me so, folks. What is the proper it's not auto tone, because that's just gonna tone it for me. I swear it's in adjustment and I just don't see it. I just want to turn the dark lines a brown color, and I don't know why I can't figure out how to do it. Let's just try hue saturation, but I don't believe that's going to do anything because they're dark, you know? This has got to be... I just want to affect the color. Why can't I figure this out? It's not a layer. And you would think with like an HSL or something like that, but it's not. And it can't be curves, because curves don't affect, you know, if I up the green, it's kind of working. I mean, ish. Let's upgrade the, turn the blue down. Yeah, that's not really what I'm talking about, though. I mean, it is making them more like that, but it's not doing what I'm wanting it to do. That's not what I want, so. I just... Similar. I swear there was like this... It's like a tritone, you know, light, dark, and then the color cast. I am not sure. I mean, balance may work just by making it more. I mean, yeah, it's color balance essentially. This last blue, that does work. My shadows are going to be definitely more yellow, more red, a little more green. It is more of what I'm talking about. It's just not 1000% there. Highlights, I think, are just going to be pretty much what they are. All right, let's just leave it around here. Not exactly what I meant, but it's fine. They are browner, if nothing else. So this is mainly like, so I'm just going to do base colors and, you know, get the ideas fleshed out of kind of what I want. kind of a darker, well, not dark, obviously. Everything's got a yellow cast to it now. We're just going to kind of go with a sort of a blue-gray. I'm going to paint the yellow cast, though, over here on my dragon to get it started as well. Turn on. I got to make sure on the lines they are locked. Otherwise, we get in trouble. And I'll just start working mostly. I mean, I guess it pretty much needs it everywhere. Might as well do the whole thing. Now, there are faster ways, like I said, doing a object selection, all this kind of stuff, but I think it just looks much more painterly when you can vary your pressure and amount of paint as you go, obviously, as though you're really doing it. Yeah, let's just stay here. Like I said, I am using a bit of a reference image of something that I did prior, so this is going to have a break here that I need to soften. Overlap of colors because I lifted my pen, but knowing that I can fix that without any problem is totally fine. I'm trying not to go outside the line so there's less cleanup, but sometimes it's absolutely just impossible, and I inevitably will have to go back and clean it, erase the edges. And that's all I mean by when I say clean, just erase your edges. And like I said, I'm trying not to be too regular about it, but sometimes it just happens. Like right now, I'm sort of speeding through filling this in. I will go back and blotch it up, adding some cool things like some splotching, maybe even some salt, because there's going to be some magical kind of, stuff around this dude's head.
Sean?
Yeah.
Go into the store.
Okay. So I'm just going to fill in some of this that I know is darker. Leaving sort of the highlight kind of along the back to a certain point. The roommate is taking my truck to the store. I don't mind so much, but especially when it benefits me for them to go. Alright, so some of that I don't want to lose, but some of that is going to be lost to a degree. It's a mild highlight here, not an extreme, so it's not a big deal that, that I didn't include everything with that. It's just kind of, it'll stay pretty much yellow. This is, for the most part, highlight toward that end of that tail. So now we'll come in and sort of green this up a little bit. I'd say green. Yellow this up. There will be green here, though, don't worry. There's just a lot of yellow here first. And I don't want to stop the yellow, start and stop the yellow and make it sort of weird that there's yellow on a lot of this and not on some. That makes no sense probably to anybody, but it will. There's none there, but there will be some through here. I like this sort of toning prior to doing the color. You always, with watercolor, want to do the base coat first. Your lightest color first, I should say, not your base coat. I'm sorry. Your lightest color will be there first. Then your darker colors follow. So otherwise, you wind up having no highlights and shadows. So I'm just painting in the darker and darker yellow. And then there will be dark yellow that runs along this side here. You see how it's sort of shaping out the form of these scales now with the sort of darker color. Then I'm putting another layer really quickly in there. Going to compensate the edge where this meets the lighter yellow again here. Gives you contrast to that shape, you know. Alright, so this will have a little bit through here, but leave the highlights of these dudes. If I have to, like I said, I can always go back in and highlight stuff after the fact if I need to. This will get darker all through here. Pretty much the darkest part of it. And then get dark again through here. If you like what you're seeing or whatever, you know, consider subscribing. I make a lot of videos about a lot of stuff. Some of it's a little confusing as well. What does this guy do exactly? Well, it's some of everything. I mean, I do paint and sculpt, and I also make movies and do music and effects work. So if there's anything here you like, you know, stick around. There'll be more of it. Anybody wants to work on something together, movie-wise, music-wise, art-wise, whatever, let me know. Like I said, right now I'm working on animations for people's music videos. I am working on my own music videos. I'm working on my own music. I'm also have a company doing role-playing games that I'm still trying to get a couple things out that are nearly ready. I do a lot of things. Professional magic, I'm getting back into, which I couldn't do because of the situation that happened that I told you about, the unfortunate thing. And I probably need to go get some therapy based on that. The fact that I call it a thing instead of what it was. Stroke. But now that my hands are getting better by far, I'm doing a lot more art, doing a lot more typing, you know, music, magic is one of those things that's probably the best thing in the world for your dexterity, because you're thinking about what needs to be done the whole time, you know, and requires a lot of focus on your hands, skill in general, you know. So here I am just adding in some darkness here to the side of the face, to this eye, of course. Lower jaw is going to have a lot of it. Lots of darkness pretty much through this area. So we'll do multiple layers of that color happening. More and more of the yellow. Eventually I will go in and grab a darker color. And we'll start hitting the greens, grays, stuff like that. So the lightest color here, I would say, on the body, green-wise, yeah, there's kind of a Kelly, well, very muted sort of, it's more of a yellow-green, I guess, something like this. And I'm just going to start with a bit of this color happening right through here. And you can see already how much kind of life comes into this thing just based on this little bit of greenness, you know, that just sort of pops out here. Just got to make sure I only take it so far at this point. There's a lot of blues in here too, so I need to make sure I'm not just slapping tons of green, you know, that's not gonna make it green. It's funny because a lot of people think, well, it's green, paint it green. Well, you wouldn't believe how many other colors you're dealing with there while doing that. So when I go in and take my blender here now, obviously defaulting to 50 like a biatch, I'm just going to blend some of these around. I will go back and put some texture and stuff in these later. Just trying to blend the extremes a little bit more together. Or they're distracting mostly, more than anything. Kind of like that. It just looks nice and happy and warm. It's good stuff. We'll get to the eye shortly. And then I kind of want to start using some grays and stuff. But I'm going to stick with this green for the moment and just kind of go, you know, the rest of the way through here. Kind of getting some of it laid out on him a little nicer. This neck's going to be mostly kind of a violet, almost gray-ish color, but it doesn't hurt to throw a little bit of the greens in the highlights here. You want to start with your lightest color though when you're watercoloring, obviously, because it's kind of, I mean, you can digitally turn back, but for the most part you shouldn't be if you're kind of doing it the way it's done. So just chucking some green in here and there, light stuff, you know, it kind of hints at it, also blends in with all the other. There is so much gray and blue in here, though, that you wouldn't assume is there. But that'll be kind of layered in. Right now I'm just kind of giving this build up, kind of cast to it. Lots of squiggling. Yeah, there are some yellows in there. A little bit maybe kind of bleeding up from the bottom of that tail, but not a lot. I'm just go ahead and fill more of that green here, maybe even a little heavier in areas. And then this gets lots of browns on the top, some greens through the center of the tail. You have to be very observant when doing stuff like this. You got to kind of say, well, is that even in there? Is this a color that's present? It looks green. My mind's telling me that it's green, but then you find out later it's actually a bunch of blues and grays or something. This I'm just using kind of to help darken the underside, give it color to work with. This is not green anywhere through there. So we go back to our blender just to kind of knock down some of those funky edges here and there. Kyle, come on. Give me a smaller. Let it stay, you know, my where I set it, please. So just blend those few together, bust out this edge just a little bit. I just think watercolor is pretty fascinating in general. Being able to do it without the mess. And not even the mess, but just the drying time. I have a cat, you know. There's cat hair, there's paw prints. Things you kind of want to avoid if you can, obviously. So doing it digitally for me is just the more practical way. Trying to break up some of these edges a bit more. All right, cool. And then we'll go back in with a kind of a almost a blue gray, I think. I'm going to go with a darker gray or green here as well in some areas, like the top of the shoulder. Oops, I'm still using the blender. So top of the shoulder here a bit. That might even be a little too dark. This is the green, but just say maybe. So that's too dark. It's mixing with the yellow is part of the reason why. So a little more color. So as you add it, it actually starts to get the darker color that you want. So just come in and knock this around color-wise. And go in and throw in another even more bigger layer level of that. I'm going to stick mostly to this in areas around the face. And these will get turned into, like I said, this sort of grayer kind of color overall. I'm just kind of giving this the green-ish sort of cast that belongs there as well with it. going to just pull down the lighting a little as well. So now we come in here a little more of the blending. This is like adding water. Just kind of pull that down so we can start breaking up some of these harsher edges and stuff. I'm tapping as I do this, so it's not going to be, you know, a bunch of smearing around. I mean, this is actually being broken up methodically and as carefully as I can on purpose. Intentionally is the word I was looking for. I will go back with an eraser and kind of clean up my edges and stuff like that. Anything that's too ugly, I kind of tap out a little bit. I want it to flow still, but still not destroy that awesomeness that is the watercolor look. That's working okay. Maybe a little more blending there. All right, and then this sort of gray, it's almost a purple kind of color. We're going to go real light with it though. Going to come more into the blues, I think, like that. So you can kind of start to see it's going to be kind of like this. It's a little strong though of a blue, so let's go ahead and back that way off. Much more gray. Something like this. There's still quite a bit of blue in there. So I'm just going to drag it over more to the gray. Still not perfect, but we're going to work with it. This is going to be a lot in here. These colors under it is part of the reason why this is getting dark, which I don't care for. Probably should not have put so much color underneath it. But I think it's working out okay, just the same. A little bit here through here. A lot of that goes to the yellow. A little bit more darkness here. It's a little darker than I like. That head is just too... It's ugly, I'll admit it. I don't like what I've done here. But this is part of the process. I personally can't stand it. So I think I've just laid in too much green and stuff in an area that doesn't need all that color. So, this seems extreme, but I'm going to strip the color completely. Start over. And I highly recommend doing this kind of thing. You know, if it doesn't look good, don't keep it. So we're just going to yank all the color from that. And go about doing this kind of how I know I should have. And yeah, that'd be better. So hurts a little, but it's all right. It's going to have more of a base color of yellow, but it's not going to be everywhere. We're going to do our lightest spots. We're just going to keep them where they go and not everywhere. That probably should be a little bit more golden than this greenish yellow. So we'll just go with a little more, something like that. And to be quite honest, yeah, there's not too much else there face-wise that should be really yellow. Something kind of like that. The entire chest, of course. And we're going to go all the way to this line here. And we can be messy about it because, like I said, all these colors pretty much overlap. I just don't want to overlap them the way I did moments ago, where it just got really gross. It's a good word for it. And I'm just going to kind of stick close to the areas where this yellow should be and not layer and blend like standard coloring. So let's go ahead and maybe throw a little bit here. Yeah. Fine. Maybe a little here. And that should really be all the yellow, other than now coming in and darkening it for, you know, the purposes of shading. We'll go through here darker for the other shading. Continuing on, you know, just darkening this out. And this will get darker and wider and whatever as we go down. Very dark through here in comparison. Little bits here and there. And obviously this gets much darker down here. And it looks pretty good. These lines can be erased and removed by the end. I really dislike the testosterone-filled folks in a good portion of this town. I'm not a fan. Alright, so that will stay pretty much like that. We're going to have a little darker of this on the back here. And maybe just a slight bit happening up here. I'm going to pull this stuff down a bit as well. It's a little too greenish yellow in my opinion, so this will kind of come down a bit more. We'll have a little bit maybe happen somewhere, in this area. Okay, I think overall not bad. Some in this front of this leg. Obviously the tail needs a bit of, and it's going to be getting probably the most of this highlight, more than a lot of the body gets. I'm just trying to keep from overdoing it like I did a while back 10 minutes ago. All right, cool. And then I think I'm going to go with that sort of the mauve color next. And that's really the color I was trying to describe earlier. It's more of a mauve. I'm just going to check something real quick. Got clients and everything else. Have to look up. Nothing there. Nothing there. And I will check another little thing. I know this is the most entertaining video so far, forever. Okay. When you ask your roommate to share your location so you know where your vehicle is, then they turn it off. Not cool. Alright, so little bits through here I think are beautiful. This is the way it should have been before, but I was mistaken. Alright, so here and there. So the colors change a lot when you layer them, and it's almost like I forgot to account for that fact. And it's with watercolor because it is transparent. Something you got to definitely keep in mind. So a much better overall vibe here, I think. Let's throw a little bit of this maybe in here. You can really start to get much more of the dimensionality, I suppose, happening here now. I like that much better. It's really easy to screw up this stuff, though, I'll tell you. I'll be honest. Because it's so kind of subtle work. The watercolor, that is. You just got to remember, you're layering transparent color. Excuse me. Got the hiccups today. last thing I want to do is argue with somebody today. But, you know, if they take your vehicle, turn off the tracker you have on for it, it just feels like something must be happening that you're not approving of, right? Am I right? Or am I being paranoid? I don't know. Not a fan of that. Alright. So some of this. More of this in here. I'll have to erase that. So we'll have some, of course. And then much darker through here. And here. Hopefully you guys, if you're watching, are enjoying this. There will be blending. There will be blood. No, there will be blending of all of this particular stuff. This is just a matter of getting it toned properly. When I'm thinking green, of course, I'm sitting here painting green, and that's not necessarily what I should be doing or what color it actually really is. I feel kind of silly about that being someone painting, considering myself a painter per se. And I don't consider myself a professional painter, but I've done a lot of it. I've done a lot of it for people just the same. So it really, I guess it's just kind of how you perceive it and myself. This is really like values and shading right here. I'm kind of working on. This overall purplish sort of tonality of what will be kind of under and blending into all of that sort of greenish color. I mean, it's kind of a light drab that'll be sort of thrown in and on this. Hopefully I can get it right. So let's just go ahead and throw some of this green now in here. I'm going to start with a very light color and build up from that. So this may be too much green. I think that's a little strong still. And this almost has no green in it whatsoever, but it has enough. So I'm just going to kind of go over and through, I think, some of this purple that we threw. Just start laying out some of that, blending that. I think that'll be okay. The lights and darks will come into play a lot more here shortly. This is just kind of like the initial chuck down of some green. And then as this builds, it will start making more impact, more sense. Because that violet will actually kind of blend with the green that's here. See? So now we're going to throw some more green here to the face. It's got a little more blue in it than I kind of want, I think. But that's okay in the initial stages here. It's still light. Everything's still very light. I just want to be careful that I don't get it too much darker just yet. I'm trying not to pick up my pen too often so that I don't get a lot of marks I have to go and blend yet. Alright, so it's pretty good, but it's very light. So now, and it's also a little blue in my opinion. So I'm going to pull this little mark over to the yellow greens and maybe a little bit more color in it, and then start to try and fill some of this in, hopefully without screwing it up. Leaving my as much of a quote-unquote highlight as I can here. Trying to find any spots that may be considered highlights. And just keep trying to fill those in. Bits of green. Let's try the head with a little more green in it now. Alright, so this is going to need some more darkening at some point as well. Try not to get it too impacty, you know, too heavy of color. Trying to leave as much of this sort of grayish purple in there as well. Blend those colors together there. Well, not blend, but darken up that gray a bit. A more powerful green. This should be more of a blue-green. I can already see it again. Don't think I'm going to go back and delete anything this time, though. I'll try and live with a version of this, if possible. Let's just attempt to do so. Do some breakups. That's what I'm calling breakups. I mean, little blends here and there. Then I will go back and do some edge cleanup and just see where we're at. Hopefully I won't hate it. Right now I sort of hate it and I sort of don't, so we'll see where we wind up. I will go back with the kind of more detailed brush at some point as well. Just tapping away. If you're watching, say hello. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. If you have comments, let me know. I am just painting away. This for a book cover for a book that I am, a series of books that I'm writing. Yeah, it's looking okay. I'm going to do a little cleanup though. Eraser. I almost filled in the entire background. Let's just get this guy real small. This type of cleanup's not 1000% necessary to do at a precise level. I'm just personally trying to get it not ugly, so I can really kind of see what I got going on here. And right now, messiness is not going to help me feel better about it. Evidently, there's some spooky music going on in the background. All right. That alarm will shut off in a second. All right. Got that. I will be going back with an even smaller eraser. Get those edges even better. I mean, he looks pretty good overall, but I will do some more enhancements, I hope, without messing it up. Also got to let it sit and kind of look into it in a bit before I decide if I hate it or like it. These by sculpting and painting and stuff like that all the time, I wind up disliking something a lot until I get the eyes done, and then I go, oh wow, that looks way better than I expected. So that's something else I'm trying to wait for. And since those are a bit different. I'm going to put those on a separate layer here. Right, eyes. And kind of select something brown. Also, I want to make the whites of the eyes slightly yellow. It makes them a little more natural looking instead of just some stark white garbage. So like that looks pretty good generally. It's very simple, almost indetectable. And then like a brown that I can build up here would probably be good. Undo those strokes. I keep forgetting we're working transparent, so I've got to come back with multiple layers of this. Looks pretty good. Maybe even a little more there. I think that'll work. It's not as golden as I wanted, but then I can take some yellow maybe and mix it over the top, just right here on these lighter parts. Perhaps. Not horrible. Alright, so now we're going to come in a bit heavier color, just kind of through here. Oh, we're still in the eyes. Don't want to do that. So I'm going to, for the moment, let's just lock the eyes for the moment. And come back into our color here. I'm going to give this just a little more personality. A little more detailed kind of painting here as well, because there's not a lot of that going on. I'm thinking maybe some browns to pull some stuff together. Maybe some more of that gray. Try that sort of a blue-gray. Come up and through here. Now this is all laid over, so I got to remember there's no actual color I'm putting here. It's, you know, laid over. Anything I put on top is going to mix with the darker color underneath. So that's something you got to be careful about. If you really want to, you can go back and erase or lighten up some of that undercolor and have it look a little nicer, but and to do that, let's do a little experiment. I'm going to find my erasing here. I'm just going to kind of pull it down and make it a lot less strong so I can sort of ease up on it. And if I wanted to put a little bit of that purpler color just right through here and just sort of rub this paint off, that's kind of how you can do in actual you can do this to some degree in actual watercolor if you take an eraser and just lightly rub. It's been my experience anyway. Now with this lighter area, I can go back with that color, sort of paint it in, and it won't compete now with the underlying color because there's white under there to let it show through. And you won't just be mixing this big muddy mess together. It actually takes that blue pretty nicely. So I'm thinking lightening up just this area a slight bit with our little eraser again, that I wish was defaults to the smaller, or at least where I left it. So just kind of erasing out color here. Not sure why it's not erasing as much as I expect here. Worried that I put, I guess we're just coming down to the paper and I'm not being able to tell. So a little bit of this blue back in through here. It's much nicer. And of course we can go back in and rub that out slightly with the, yet again, defaulting to way big of a blender there. And if we get it too blended, obviously we can go back and add some texture back into it or something. Still think he's a bit too colorful, but I can always pull down the saturation of this layer once everything's kind of together. I think will work. If you like what you're seeing, if you're watching, let me know. It's always a nice thing to hear. And if you don't, stick it, go ahead and tell me. It's all good. I'm kind of feeling like that green needs to be quite a bit more blue-gray. So what I can do is come in and just sort of erase some of it out where I feel like it's a little too strong a green. I can turn up the flow again is what's happening here, so give it just a little stronger erasability. Don't erase all the green, but just sort of pull some of it out so we can blend some of that blue back in there. Just think it's a little too strong of that green, so. Just think of this as a rub and buff for watercolor. So now when I go back with that blue, Should kind of give it a better overall tone. Hopefully without darkening anything else down too much. And then once the color's in, of course, we can go back and blend things a bit better. So right now it's got a colored pencil kind of vibe to it that I'm not caring for. So we just pull down here and tap out a lot of this color. That will get rid of our pencil-y looking stuff to start with. And like I said before, if it gets a little too blendy, you can always go back and add paper texture back in, carefully and lightly, of course, with our paper texture brush. Very small though. Something like this, very lightly. That kind of adds that watercolor paper feeling back in there. I think that looks very good. Just taking out some of that green really helped. Because he's green, but he's not that green. Can even pull some more out. Some other areas. We might want it a little more blue-green. We want the actual paint though. And then come back with our blend. Ugh, I wish I'd saved my settings. There's got to be a way I can tell it. Not seeing it there, but anyway. Blend some of this out. And back up to our, add some paper texture back in there. Careful not to overdo it. I think that looks pretty good. So now we can come in and just chip away at some of this color. Erase a little bit of that happening. I had to pray we were on the right layer there for a second. All right, cool. Looking good. So I'm just going to continue going that. I'm going to go eat lunch though, guys. Thank you for watching for now. There will be more. And this color will lighten up quite a bit by the end, I think. But cool. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching, and bye.